Welcome to the Fit Agent Show. With me today, I have a great friend of mine, actually in a neighboring country, actually in Canada, and
Hmm.
is an award-winning realtor and a fantastic friend as well. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Stoked
sir.
to be
Yes,
here.
sir. Absolutely. So we're getting close to the end of the year, and just curious, how's this year been for you so far?
It's been a good year. And I say that, what does that really mean? Well, to be fair, it's been busy here in Calgary. It's been profitable, which is nice. There's certainly been challenges like there are in a lot of other markets. Strangely for me, the last couple months have been a bit slower than I'm used to. Now, interestingly about that, there's been opportunity. I have buyers that are looking, I have sellers that are willing to sell, but some of the situations have changed for them such that either they pull a listing or it doesn't go as fast as they want, or it's still on the market, let's say, or buyers are saying, okay, well, now we're hearing that interest rates might change slightly into the new year, so we'll hold off for a bit. Not
Yeah,
unexpected this time of year with the seasonality of things, but I
definitely.
cannot complain. It's been another good year.
That's awesome. Awesome to hear. Well, for the people that don't know, you can kind of give us like a quick elevator pitch and how you got into real estate, and let's kind of go in from there.
Absolutely. So been in the game for 13 years now. I got licensed in 2010 in October.
Wow.
So here we are in 2023. I transitioned over from a media background.
Okay.
So I went to journalism school. I did my undergraduate at university up here, and then I went into journalism school because that's kind of what I thought I wanted to be. It was a
Yeah.
broad. So I went and I did that. I got in with several companies here over the years and did everything from starting as a volunteer to working behind the scenes, then getting in front of the camera, doing everything from reporting out in the field, reporting in studio, and even hosting several shows, including before I got into real estate proper, I hosted a real estate show which ran back, I'm dating myself, back in 2008 called Real Investments Television.
No way. I didn't know that.
It aired nationally in several different cities, which was cool. It was a half an hour long, and just before the market crashed, both in, we'll call it Canada and the US and most of
Wow.
the world. And it was about investing in real estate, which was cool. And then obviously the market did crash. Media was hit hard with that. Lots of layoffs. I got out before that happened.
Uh-huh.
But there just was not a lot of media work to be had at all after that. And so I was doing some contract work, but it was sparse.
Yeah.
And when I was working in media, I also did a series where I covered I interviewed some people in commercial real estate, in industrial real estate, which ties into commercial and residential. And when
Yeah.
I did that, I got to meet some cool people and learn some different things about the business. And so when it came, well, the idea came, well, what to do next with my life, because media is not really going to be where it's at least for the short and long-term future. I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe real estate. I had some friends in the business already doing very well. And so I decided, got some advice from them. I decided to get my license. And then I ended up
Yeah.
mentoring under a very, very good realtor here in the city with Remax at the time. And for about 2 years with him, which I always recommend too for many new agents. I'm old school now, if you want to call it that. And I
Yeah.
usually
But
say,
to establish your, yeah, to
yeah,
establish the right habits and stuff. I mean, I think that's really the right way to go for so many agents.
it's huge. And so I've always been part of a team. And so the elevator pitch essentially with me is now I've worked with 5 different brokerages over the years. I'm staying with Real. It's such a great fit. My Kismet story is that I had my Gmail years ago. For some reason, I was just like, I can't pick Jeff Tincher 123. It's not, or whatever, it's not available. So I'll just like I'm the real Jeff Tincher. So real Jeff
Yeah.
Tincher, gmail.com. I've had that well before Real became a thing. And now here we are. And I use
Yeah.
that email address. So I think it was meant to be.
Definitely.
So that's kind of the skinny on me and how I got into the business.
I love that. I want to kind of go back in time. What was it like those first couple of years, and like how did you like what kind of success did you see early on in business, and how did that kind of grow as you've been in the business for 13 years?
The cool thing about it, Spencer, was that I was able to, in a short amount of time, really make a dent into having success.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of twofold. One, I ended up, like I alluded to earlier, I mentored under a very good realtor. So he's been doing it a long time in an area, I guess you call it the neighborhood he farms and still does to this day, and sort of grew up in, is a higher end area in Calgary.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to learn that side quicker than most agents who come into the business. I still had to cut my teeth with a lot of stuff. There were splits involved. I had to take sort of the scraps, if you will, that were
Sure.
available. But obviously, with the trade off of learning knowledge, learning about the industry, having it's whether you mention Hormozy or you mention anyone at Real like Sharon or whomever, or even in the fitness industry, who you hang out with and who you rub elbows with does make a difference sooner rather than later if you're committed to it. So because of that, I was able to have opportunities to lean into video a bit, but also sit open houses in luxury properties and co-list properties like that I wasn't, some agents don't have that until they're into their third, fourth, fifth year, whatever. And it depends on market too, right? If you're in a
Yeah.
very, very small town, you might not have a lot of luxury to sit at all or to help with because it's just not that kind of market. So the cool thing was is I had access to that fairly early on. The biggest thing that I learned was that I made mistakes just like everybody else, especially when you're new. I had a mentor that was able to absorb that and not come down too hard on me, making me feel terrible for it, understanding that he was once a newbie realtor as well.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. So who you work with does matter as well. But learning, and he was able to say, look, you're gonna deal with this clientele at this time and this price point. You are going to run into this. Be prepared for it. And sure enough, most times I was, but in the event that I wasn't, he had either warned me about it,
Yeah.
or whatever the saying is, like put your tail between your legs, cut your losses, all those things. Financially, mentally, maybe physically a bit too, there were some hard lessons learned. And so going forward from that in those first few years, I think it's super invaluable because I was able to sort of fast track some of those lessons that I still wonder to this day when new agents come into the industry. I wonder, like, it's great that you can sell luxury quickly. Maybe you can do 100 transactions a year because of your work ethic and stuff. What I do
Yeah.
still want to to this day, and I talk about it with a lot of people, is what about the deals that are super challenging, that fall apart, that maybe get into some legal hot water? Like that is so, it's not everybody talks about it, but it can be a big part of the industry. So
Certainly.
I
Yeah.
was able to learn that
No,
quickly, thankfully,
yeah.
and be aware of it.
No, that's awesome. And when it comes to like you first starting out in real estate, were you grabbing the camera immediately and hopping on in front of the camera and talking like you do now, or was that a kind of a gradual thing to build up that?
It was, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, it was so a different time, of course, right? Social media is so
Right.
prevalent now. We can use our iPhones, we can use so many different types of tech to be
Yeah.
able to do something in, we can do Insta lives, we can do so many things on the spot. In 2000, we'll call it 2010 to 2014, especially, that just wasn't a thing. So you
Correct.
were still using the old, bigger, sort of more news cameras to shoot things before things sort of progressed a little bit to the smaller cameras.
Yeah.
And even then, it wasn't so instantaneous. It was usually, it was a listing video, and ours were
Yep.
better because I had more experience. Lucas Ramage, I'll give him props. He still refers to me as one of the original gangsters of video here
Yeah.
because I was one of the reasons Lucas does video, and he works with Real, for those that you don't know, a great agent here in Calgary. He's done very well with video. He's self-taught, similar to Brad, but where I'm going with it is a lot of them look back to some of my old videos too as motivation to get
Yeah.
better. And then, yeah, so going back to your question too, it was more of just hopping on. I already had the confidence to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, a little bit different obviously in real estate than in news or sports or stuff like that, where it's not, you're not live per se, but you have to, I still stumbled over my scripts. I had to learn more about the product. I had to know, you had to think of the right way to storytell. And that's of course evolved over the years too. But I'm luckier than some starting out back then, and still am to this day, where it's getting over that fear of, well, what do I do on camera? Where do I put my hands? Like, how do I appear confident? What makes
Yeah.
sense? Do I script it? Do I not? Those kind of things, right? So I'm lucky that I was able to kind of bypass all that fairly early, and still am able to be a source of inspiration and or kind of a mentor for those who are like, well, how do I make that jump even from I don't know what to do on camera, to just give some advice, which nowadays is the super cool part, as you know, is this whole collaboration and sharing knowledge, such that I don't care if you work for KW, Remax, Coldwell, Real, EXP, I'll be like, here's exactly what you should do to be comfortable in front of the camera.
Well, that's kind of what I honestly wanted to ask you about. Like, what would be like some of the top tips that you would give maybe somebody that's either maybe they're a brand new agent or maybe they've been at the game for 15, 20 years, but they know that social media is a huge tool that they can use to help broaden their audience. If they're not sure how to get in front of the camera and how to feel confident and sound confident, what are some of the things that you like recommend people focus on to start to execute on those videos?
Step one would be to have, so I'm on my iPhone 13 right now. I
Okay.
still don't have all the bells and whistles that maybe Brad does, Brad McCallum, or that some of the real hardcore social content creators have. I will get there, but I like to have more. I like to kind of contract out the editing more than most do. And I'm
Yeah.
still learning, to be honest, because I've been so used to other people shooting it for me. So here we are. I say, take your iPhone out or your smartphone,
Yep.
even sit in front, kind of like what we're doing now. It doesn't have to be live. You don't even have to be recording it to send out, and record yourself. And it's really awkward at first because you're probably always going to think that you sound different than you do in real life. You're always going to think that you look weird or whatever. The more you practice, you get over those things and you start to realize mannerisms. So for example, if body language is a huge thing, and I've even kept my body language to more of a minimum so far, I've noticed. So see, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But if you're someone that is a hand talker, that's okay. But there's ways that you can obviously minimize or sort of use that to your advantage, but it takes practice. The second thing I would focus on is start listening to how you talk as well. So instead of, maybe you're nervous, and I used to do this all the time, and it's something that does take a ton of work and attention, but trust me, it pays off, is pay attention to the pauses. Pay attention to how often you're saying ands and ahs and ums, or or those colloquialisms that we all do, because how you're going to talk to somebody in your house just at dinner isn't going to be the same as how you're trying to impress somebody or motivate somebody or speak to a crowd. It's going to be different because you want to have that confidence, you want to have that pause, you want to have their attention. So even me in the last year, here I am, I told you 13 years, I guess, doing this in the business. I had 8 years of media before that, to this day. And this year, I've been so lean into some of the people that you love to listen to and watch and emulate, and get their story about kind of what their tips and tricks would be. And there's one gentleman on social media that even talked about the power of the pause and the power of having a certain vocal tone when you get to a point where you're confident enough to maybe change the way that you deliver a little bit, enough to know that there's a little bit difference on camera than there is in real life. So practice. So here we go back to have your smartphone, because that's the easiest thing to use. Practice the videos, work on how you speak, and it's going to be a work in progress, trust me, but it
Yep.
will get better. And then start leaning into, well, what things do I think define your, I guess not define you, but what are my mannerisms that make me me, that I shouldn't change. So it can be obviously physical things, people, you do the glasses or the hair or whatever, but then leaning into too, well, can I adopt some styles that other people have with their hand gestures, or leaning in, or having a confidence once I'm ready to kind of work on that I can still harness and make your own. Those are
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest things that really I can pass along to people. It isn't something that happens overnight. It's just not. But I will say that there's so many, it's neat to look back and see like, oh, I was so awkward before. Having the
Oh, yeah.
courage to actually do it takes time, but you will absolutely get better at it the more you do it. And then once you have that confidence level even up a little bit, working in different mediums, from widescreen, different cameras, long form, short form, even Insta lives, or doing a Facebook live or whatever it might be, because it's that tests you as well. It's a little bit different breed when you know that you can't go back and edit anything. So some people will get afraid of that. I said, well, just try it. Even if you don't post it, try it out. I don't care if you get 2 viewers. The more that you do it, you're going to increase your viewership, of course, and then you're just going to get more confident doing it, so that it becomes sort of second nature.
No, I love that. I think a lot of it does come down to like the reps. I mean, because
Mhm.
you can write it out on paper all day long and you can think about it in your head all day long, but until you put it on the camera and you film it and you post it and you kind of like critique yourself, I think that's your best ways to kind of improve on that kind of stuff, is to go through those reps and do it day in and day out. And do you have any kind of like structure when it comes to like how often you're posting and that kind of stuff, or how are you managing a lot of the video content that you're producing?
I've had more structure lately, where I've been trying to lean into more of posting, say, a few more reels per week on Instagram. So for those that don't know, I primarily focus on Instagram, and I'm going to lean into YouTube a lot more than I have.
Okay.
As a team with the McCallum group, most of what I can relay people to or push them towards to see, and a lot of people have seen, is Brad's YouTube channel. So mine has kind of been collecting dust for a few years. So I just said to myself, well, here we are in this day and age where it is important that you're on social media if you want to expand your reach and your brand and your productivity and all those things. I don't care what industry you're in.
Yeah.
So then it's a matter of, so I'm on Instagram and I'm on YouTube. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Twitter and those
Yeah.
kind of things. A little bit on LinkedIn, of course, too, on the more professional side. So those kind of things have really been what I have been and will focus on, so that I'm going back and I'm committing to myself and creating more of a schedule. I've been more loosey-goosey for the last few years, but on Instagram, a few more reels a week, a few more
Yep.
stories. For YouTube, it will be, because that's the thing. It's like I'm such a big fan of Alex Hormozy and a lot of the stuff that I've learned about him, because I didn't know too much about him before. But
Sure.
some of that stuff where we learned, it's like, you got to start, like, why do I suck? I suck at YouTube. Okay, well, what do I have to do? I got to go and fix my thumbnails. I got to learn to start producing more content. So, but not getting overwhelmed enough. Like for me, the big thing is, okay, well, if I can do one video a week that makes sense, shorts maybe not as much, because you can do this pretty quick, but
Yeah.
one long form content a week is going to be my goal now going forward. Once I'm more confident with that and that past those baby steps to toddler steps, then
Yeah.
it'll be maybe 2 week, 3 week, whatever. And so I've already committed to being a little bit more organized with that.
Yeah.
And to plan that into the schedule. I'm still working on it, because I'm honestly, right now in my career, I'm in this sort of limbo of, I want to learn from some of the others, where I'm like, okay, what should I be producing that's unique to
Yeah.
me, that isn't just property tours, or that isn't just certain things that people do that work for them but might not work for me, and to differentiate yourself too.
When it comes to those YouTube videos, what kind of content are you really going to put out there that is going to attract more buyers and sellers?
For me, it's going to be a commitment, at least to start off with neighborhoods. And
Okay.
so I did that. So I've had interestingly, some people that have done very well with it say, well, what about ideas like certain communities, where in Calgary, we've got a really popular community called Mahogany in the Southeast. And I live in the Southwest, very close to a new community called Alpine Park. So you
Okay.
can do those Mahogany versus Alpine Park things, benefits,
Got it.
drop.
Yeah. Compare, contrast kind of things. Okay.
Another thing will be the benefits, or I guess the pros and cons to the city. I know some agents have definitely done that, and it's worked out well for them, because there's people that want to know, if I'm going to move there, what am I going to love? What might I not love? What makes sense? Why shouldn't I move there? Those kind of things. And then I want to lean it a little bit more. I've used the word lean about 74 times. I want to do some content around what makes me, sort of my brand, and why people would want to get to know me better. And also, again, thinking about from a seller perspective and from a buyer perspective, having some content around that, the differentiations, providing value. Because one of the things that I keep going back to, that the takeaways from all these conferences and all these great speakers and all these things, is brand. Brand is huge. That's kind of a no-brainer. So let's focus on that. But
Yeah.
number two is storytelling. So figuring out what makes a unique enough story that draws people in for more than just seconds at a time, because we're all so scattered. And then another thing, I guess it comes down to, is thinking about that content that just is more maybe specific to your area, because I can't be North and South Carolina, I can't be Florida, I can't be New York. They're all amazing. I can't be California. Those are all, I'm just not going to be that. But there's still amazing content that can come out of a city up in Alberta,
Sure.
which is maybe obvious, maybe it's not. Every place has some stuff that can be really cool to tell. So I'm going to start, again, trying to have some content that is about that as well.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, that hyperlocal stuff. I've heard a lot of people talk about that as being like the main focus that a lot of our content should be about, because it's what's going to show up in people's searches. It's what people are really going to get a lot of value from, and it's really about like becoming like the mayor of the 30 or so mile radius from around you, because like that's really where your market's at. So owning that when it comes to the video content too, I think is awesome. Just curious, what is Calgary like? Like, what would be like your favorite things about the area, and why do you call that home?
Yeah. I've been here a long time, so I know it very, very well. So if you're in a place long enough, you start to, it's a twofold thing where part of it over the years, there's some certain things that you might take for granted. And then someone else comes new to the city, like, oh, I totally forgot about that. That is amazing. Yes, you should be here for that. So for Calgary, because of our proximity to the mountains, I've stopped over in Denver. I've not spent a lot of time in Denver, but from what I can gather, Calgary is basically a sister city to that because of the
Okay.
proximity to the Rockies, the size of this city, which is about 1.6 all in, 1.6 million people.
Uh-huh.
It's a 45-minute drive to the mountains, but just before you get to the mountains, there's the foothills. There's lots of hiking trails. There's beautiful scenery. Once you get into the mountains, there are town sites like Banff, which is in a protected wildlife park. There's a town called Canmore, which is a resort town. There's Lake Louise. Some of these you may or may not have heard of, where the scenery is just stunning. And what's interesting in the last, I would call it 5 years, especially because of social media and content creation, all these things, that has put Lake Louise, Banff, Canmore more on the map than anything, such that people want to see these stunning places that they maybe never knew existed. Well, they have
Yeah.
to technically fly into Calgary first, sort of as a home base. So you're seeing more people staying in VRBOs to get out to the mountains. So mountains is a huge part of what makes Calgary amazing, because during the winter, and we do get a lot of winter months here, that's something that is very, very attractive, as it is in summer, where we still get really hot summers too. They're just not as long, and people can go out and do those outdoor activities and see nature and all those fun things. Calgary is a very clean city, and because of what you can do outdoors here, and it's 1.6 million, but it's not really congested like a lot of other countries for that matter with their population bases. Canada
Uh-huh.
just doesn't have as many people in a big country, so you get a lot more wide open spaces.
Got it.
Another thing that's really great about here is we do something called the Calgary Stampede, which is every July. It's dubbed the greatest outdoor show on earth. And it really is an amazing chance to come and check out everything from the agricultural side of things to rodeo, to sports, to the party scene, of course. There are definitely extracurricular things that you can do, but it's another event that is fairly well known, that brings in a lot of people, a lot of musical acts, a lot of different entertainment for about 10 days. So people come and then they sort of fall in love with the city at times. And we get a ton of sunshine in this city per capita compared to just about anywhere else in North America. That's not a made up statement.
Yeah.
As far as you know, Calgary and Winnipeg, which is in Manitoba,
Uh-huh.
to our man Jesse Peters, we get a ton of sunshine up here. So the quality of living is such that, yes, there's cold days, but they don't feel as cold most times because the sun's out. And where that plays into is with your mental health, because if you're in a place where there's a lot of overcast days and it's dark, that can start to mess with you. We have a lot of lakes in and around Calgary. I shouldn't say a lot, not compared to Ontario or BC, but there's lake properties and there are lake communities, so you can enjoy some of the water and outdoor pursuits, so that we don't have beaches, we don't have sand in the sense of being on the ocean, and we don't always have hot temperatures. But for those that like the more moderate climate, because I've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people from Texas, from, we'll call it Louisiana, down in the southern states, they're just saying the humidity is so crazy. When we come up to Calgary, some come to live temporarily, some permanent, some visit, and they
Yeah.
just say it's so different here because they don't feel always so, like, they're not always sweating, they don't feel
Sure.
all those things. It's a drier climate. So we'll go back to the Denver example as a sister city. Very, very similar in terms of what it offers. So I think that it's the fourth largest city in Canada. So most of the things that we like to do around here, yeah, they do involve the mountains, but we have close proximity to some very cool things on the entertainment scene. And we're about to finally get a new hockey arena here.
Oh, no
And that's
way.
super important because we have the second oldest hockey arena in the National Hockey League, and we have a pretty big city by population. So because of that, once that's developed, we'll start to see the real estate around it get developed, the entertainment districts that will come up, and that's going to be really, really cool to see finally after all these years.
That's super exciting. You hit on something that I kind of want to dive into too, when it comes to mental health. What have you done this past year to keep your mental health in check, especially with the real estate market being a little bit more difficult? What have been some things you've done on a daily basis, maybe a weekly basis, to make sure that you stay in tune and taking care of yourself?
Funny you should ask, fit agent. So definitely we're gonna delve into some of the exercise part of things because that's huge. So the
Yeah.
physical. So I'll talk about that first. For me, I know you know this and several others that have been cheering me on along the way, is I recently, as of this week, completed my 100 days of running 2 kilometers or more.
Love
So
that.
I don't quite know what that equates to in miles, because in Canada we have our kilometer system and stuff. But it
Makes
does,
way more sense than the mile does. I'll tell you that much. Gracious.
a kilometer is less than a mile, but the long and the short of that is it was just a goal that I was like, okay, well, I like running, but I don't like running super, super long distances. As an agent, when we're busy doing, most of the times when we're busy, finding time to carve out that isn't at 4 a.m. to do a full workout isn't always easy. And
Sure.
so what I wanted to do was find something that was fairly cheap and fairly easy to do at just about any time of the day. So
Yeah.
I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to run, why don't we turn this into, I just turned it into a personal challenge for me. I wasn't part of a group or anything. And I said, well, what's a distance that's comfortable enough to get my heart rate up enough, but still do it in just a few minutes? So I would do 2 kilometers, 3 sometimes, 4 sometimes, whatever it might have been, so that I could wrap it up in half an hour or less.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, 100 days. My first goal for that, when I wasn't busy or at times I haven't been busy, is to do it 100 consecutive days.
Uh-huh.
Similar to 75 hard, but not as hard, because it doesn't involve as many aspects. But that quickly became tougher, because with kids in a family, and I'm not trying to make excuses here, but between sicknesses, kids in a family, recently I had my mother passed away. So things that come up, going on trips to wherever it might be, there's stuff that gets in the way that and work too, that makes it kind of hard to do it every single day to carve out that time.
Yeah.
So I completed that. And then one of the things that I've done in tougher times, whether it be this year or in slower markets in the past, Spencer, is on the physical side, is keep up the exercise. So when we
Mhm.
talk about the importance of just getting your mind off of things, to shed new perspective on things, where you go out for a nature walk, or you go for a run, or you go for a hard workout, at least two things. One, three things, I guess. Obviously, it gets your body into a more of a rhythm, it releases endorphins, all the good things. Two, whether you're doing CrossFit or if you have a running group. Now, for me, on my challenge lately, it was more solo, but you get the support through social media to an extent where you're like, I kind of got this cool tribe now, which is holding
Sure.
me accountable, and is also, you can vent your own different opinions about things, and it doesn't have to be about work, which is cool. And then it's just creating that sort of routine, we'll call it discipline too, of having a habit that you can go to get your mind off things when they seem like they're, I guess, down. And then of course another benefit to that would be if you're working in a gym or you become part of a group, and people get to know you, and then your sphere increases. So that's the physical side and the mental side. And then I guess it's similar to, is intertwining those two, in down markets or when times are slower, just reaching back out to people, having the faith. I've been doing this long enough to, when they say that markets will go up and down, it's true. When the experts say that, the people that have been
Yeah.
doing it long enough, and things will go up and down, they will bounce back. So having the confidence to ride that out, even though it might seem really tough at the time, because I've had some lean years, had some really successful years. And I know that there's some agents for sure out there right now that are scratching their heads, and they're at their wits' end. They feel like they're doing everything. I'm like, just stay the course. Similar to what Tamir Poleg said, it's that we've got probably another at least 6 months of challenge. If you
Yeah.
can mentally get through that, and then focus on some things that distract you enough, like exercise and human connection, that goes a long, long way.
Yeah, and I think even pairing those two together, I think that's been like something that we've been able to do here recently, at the Rise conference, where we got that group workout together and we all crushed it before we even started off that conference. I think that was an awesome way to clear our minds and to really bond with those people that were in that room. It felt like we almost like went to battle, like, and it was only an hour workout, but
Yeah.
seeing everybody like push themselves to that limit and know that like we're kind of all in this together and encouraging each other. Really, I think when it comes to like building a community, I think that's like one of the best aspects is making sure that you have a good support group that's also there to push you to the limit and show you what you're truly capable of. I think that's like one of the ways that we can really thrive through this challenging market is by linking arms with other agents that are obviously experiencing the same stuff, but also going to battle, whether that's like going on a run together or hitting the gym together, as a great way to all get our mind off of real estate for a minute and to focus back on ourselves and encourage somebody. I think that's like one of the best things you can do too is like actually just encourage somebody because it makes you feel better inside. Like whenever you're helping somebody else out and you're going through that workout, being able to lift them up and encourage them almost empowers you to kind of keep on pushing too. So when it
Mhm.
comes to um when it comes to like what you're doing on a daily basis or anything else that really kind of stands out, or is that something that you focus on to continue to strive for whenever it comes to like your daily practices?
It's both. And I say that because I've been I feel like I'll always be a work in progress. I
Yeah,
try and be disciplined about stuff, everything from routine on a work side, routine on a fitness side. But I feel like I try and also be smart enough or easygoing enough to realize that no day is ever going to be the same. There will be curveballs, whether you're single, whether you're with a spouse, whether you have family commitments, work, all the stuff that comes in life. Now, the discipline side of things is important to try and plan it so that you can at least have some sort of schedule. And for me, even on a daily basis, I'm getting better at setting aside time for certain things. But I also, and this is to me part of the mental process and trying to keep your mental health, or at least working on it, is the sense that we're all guilty of going on a social media and be like, well, so and so has it figured out. They work out exactly at 7 a.m. They get that in, and then they do 2 hours of work, and then they've got this and they've got that, and they have it all scheduled out. Well, I'm here to call kind of probably BS on most of that, because
sure.
I guarantee you not every day is the same. No way. And
Yeah,
that's not real life. We're human beings where we're also going to have things that come out of the blue where we're like, I was not expecting that. Like whether it's work or family or anything, where it's gonna make us go, I cannot do this right now.
yep,
This is, so I missed it today or whatever, and that's completely fine. That's, to be honest, that's normal.
yeah,
And I, to each their own. There's maybe some that would disagree with me, and that's fine. But so for me, it's really going back to trying and plan the week, the night before, to really sort of dig deep on what it'll be at that particular next day, but to also remember to schedule it in, because for a while I was going through the motions of where it either didn't seem worth it or whatever, or I just didn't schedule it in. And so
yeah,
because I didn't do it, and then months go by and you're like, oh man, like I feel like I want to still do something, but now I'm feeling lethargic because I didn't schedule it in. And that's, so that comes back to that sort of discipline point of view. So for me, it's still work in progress, because knowing, again, like what I just said, there's going to be times where no matter what you schedule, it's not going to work out. It's okay. Pick yourself up off the mat, brush yourself off. And that's why I've told people, because people said, well, you did 100 consecutive days, right? I said, well, unfortunately, no, it didn't work out. I started that way to try and get those runs in, but I'm also not going to lie and be like, oh yeah, I did it all in 100 days. Forget it. That's just not the way. So I stretched it out, still
yeah.
accomplished it. I'm going to be doing a different challenge coming up here too, which is going to be just for me essentially. And it's just going to be unique. Well, not unique, but it's going to be what I feel like doing, and then going 100 days of that, but it might not be consecutive.
Sure. That's awesome. I think it's good to set those kind of goals too, because I mean, it does push yourself, but also still like holds you accountable and realizing too that like, yes, life does happen. I think, I know we've talked about Hermosi like a couple of times in this podcast, but he even referenced too, like when it came to like his workout schedule before he launched that book, he was maybe only going to the gym 2, 3 times a week. And maybe that's like all you need right now because you might need to be putting in more hours into your family or into your business, and you just maybe you're in a maintaining season when it comes to your health and fitness, not everything's on growth like all the time kind of thing. So I think it's good to keep that perspective that you can't go a million miles an hour in every aspect of life, and um,
Yeah,
you got to be able to have some flexibility in that sense too.
agreed.
Yeah, yeah. Also, when it comes to some tips to leave people that maybe are considering getting into working out and not sure where to start, what would be some things that you would recommend people consider?
I definitely, because I'm athletic, but I've never been, I'm a skinny guy. I've never been super ripped or anything like that. And that's not excusing things. What I think is cool about it is, what I tell a lot of people is, find something you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah,
So for me, I'm not in love with running, but it's something that I enjoy. I feel like I'm decently good at. And it's something that, as I told you before, you can basically carve out time for. Another tip would be to find something that, again, if you're budget conscious, for running, for example, all you really need is a pair of pretty good running shoes and you can go out and do it. Obviously, to have some gear if it's a bit when things get chillier or something, or if you aren't just a fair weather runner and don't want to just be inside, to have a bit of the gear. I spent $50 on some JVC earbuds that changed everything, because I was like, well, I don't want to spend a ton, but I also need something I have to run to music because it just makes life better. So I'm into an investment of, we'll call it like $150 shoes, which I got on sale. So going back to the budget point of view, and then some $50 earbuds, and that you can go out and do that.
Yeah.
So find what you really think you'd enjoy. Find a workout buddy. I know that you know this from our workouts together here and there, and also people that you're on with Fit Agent and stuff like that. Find your own little tribe with something that, again, you are fit with, whether it's CrossFit or running or cross-country skiing, pickleball, it doesn't matter. So that you're going to hold yourself to it, and you're not just going to be like, oh man, I have to go do this again. Forget it. And then if you're sort of new to the game, just committing to something, in the sense that, well, like we just talked about, which I think is a super valid point. I know you might know people that do it 5 times a week. That's great. But start with something where it's like, for once this week, I'm going to run for 10 minutes. Once this week, I'm going to do a CrossFit workout. Once this week. And then if you either come into more time and more money where you can spend it to be able to do it, start doing it a couple more times. And it's like anything, if you start with it, you'll probably stick, gradually you'll stick with it more. So those are the things that I'd have, because I know it's worked for me.
I love that. I think it's baby steps. It's not like we don't need to just like wake up and go to the gym 6 days a week and try to drop 100 pounds in 2 months like that. Let's be realistic with our goals. And I think same thing comes with real estate too. It's like, you're not probably going to wake up and just sell 100 homes your first year. It's these baby steps, and also surrounding yourself with the right people. They're going to be able to push you in that right direction. So I love that.
And to give a break too, right? Because I know several agents personally too, where they were going into a burnout phase, and they were so busy and trying to do it all that basically either they've left the industry, they had to step back, whether somebody advised them to or not, and admit that, like, I can't handle this. My body can't handle all this stuff. And they've gone towards going into more exercise here and there, or self-care, so that they can at least, because if you burn out, you're not really obviously able to service your clients as easily. You're not able to be true to yourself more. You don't feel good, all those things. So one of the things that I guess a tip to get started with things is to, no matter who you follow, whether they're super successful or not, one of the things that I've always tried to fight a little bit with some of those that maybe don't agree with this is, you don't have to do it all, but you do need to take some time for yourself so that you can be your best version of yourself later. Because for all the gurus and whomever that make it seem like, or legitimately don't sleep, they work out a lot, but they somehow find time to do everything, and they still make a ton of money, if that's their thing or whatever it might be. I'm calling like, hold on, like, let's unwind the thread here and say, okay, but in reality, you must be taking time for self-care, because if you burn out, then you're no further ahead, especially if you don't have your health.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you having on today. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at The Real Jeff Tincher. You can find me if you search the McCallum Group on YouTube. You will find Brad McCallum. You'll find us and our team doing videos there. You can find me at The Real Jeff Tincher on YouTube as well. And this is good because it'll hold my feet to the fire to get that channel up and going better than it has been. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So those are my social media places. And if anyone is ever up in the Calgary area, of course, or wants to know more about it, our team, myself, just so much knowledge about Calgary and what it has to offer, and Canada in general too. And one of the things that we talk about here as Canadians is like, well, as a geography lesson for so many, it's a big country here. I know the US is too. It is because most people know where Toronto is, and most people know where Vancouver is. Those are the two biggest cities. I get that. To fly from Toronto to Vancouver is honestly about a 5.5 hour flight. So if you were even to go, but to fly from Calgary to Vancouver is 1 hour. So again, deductive math, It's about 4.5 hours to fly to just Toronto. There's a lot of space in between. So that's when people are like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense more of where Calgary is towards the Rocky Mountains. And so when people realize that and they start researching things about what they can do up here and coming to see the mountains or do whatever, that's just a nice sort of drop the pin of where we are and what we are.
Love that. Love that. I know I caught myself a couple of times whenever I hear somebody that's from Canada say, "Oh, well, you must know so and so." It's like, well, they're 300 miles away from me. Like I probably don't actually know who they are. So
Exactly.
that's a good reminder.
It's so crazy because this country we just turned over 40 million people for a country this big. And it's funny because the US has way, 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 and most countries do have a lot more than us, but it's for a country this big. So that's why I think people are like, oh, you must know so and so.
Yeah,
Well, no, you think we do, but it is a big country.
it's
Yeah.
huge. It's huge. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jeff. I appreciate you being on, and looking forward to seeing you soon, man. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome.